Hello, everybody. Welcome to CGU Christ Grace Unlimited. My name is Trust in Christ, and today is a good day. Today is a great day. And as always, today is a day of the Lord. As we left off from last week, one of the big lessons dealing with Solomon's fall, where he turned away from God by directly defying the commandments of God, where he turned to strange women and married strange wives, and they turned his heart away from God in his elder years. And God revisited him after talking to him twice and said that he was going to take the kingdom of Israel away from his household, but will leave him two tribes and one tribe. So this promise was said not to happen into his day, but will happen in his son's day, Rehoboam. And we see that, the man that prophesied against him, Jeroboam, he went and fled. And you see a similar thing happen with King Ahab when the prophet, prophesied, the truth to him, his death if he went into battle. He was in prison. So one thing about prophets have a tough job. And typically when you get prophesying, judgment, typically people don't like that and they want, have your head. But we're going to continue where we left off, where Rehoboam or Rehoboam becomes king. All right, verse number 1. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. And it came to pass when Rehoboam, the son of Nebat, who was in Egypt, heard of it, for he fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt, that they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will service thee. All right, so as we see in the prior chapter, God stirred up some enemies for Solomon to take the kingdom away from him. Solomon had peace, and in his son's day, you see things are being set up for the kingdom of Israel to be split from him. Because remember, David, he was king of all of Israel. Saul was king of all of Israel. And Solomon was king of all of Israel. And God stirred up enemies. And Solomon had a lot of servants. And he put them to work heavily. And what they're doing right now, since Solomon's sons, Rehoboam, became king, they go to him and say, can you make our burden lighter and we will serve you forever? So this was the conflict that happened in this chapter. And you see that in verse 4. And you see, what did he do? Verse 5. And he said unto them, Depart yet for 3 days, and come again to me. And the people departed. And King Rehoboam consulted the old men that stood before Solomon his father, while he yet lived, and said, How do ye advise that I may answer this people? They spake unto him, saying, If thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and wilt serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. So the king's counsel, the wise king's counsel of Solomon said, Don't speak harshly to them. Speak good words to them. Be a servant, because a king is a servant towards the nations that they're over. That's the intent of a king. And they will be your servants forever. You serve them, you give them, what they want, and you make their burdens lighter, and you speak to them kindly, they will serve you forever. But what did the young ruler do? Well, he didn't listen to the wise counsel of the king, and wise counsel is important. What the son of Solomon did, in spite of having wise counsel, he did the polar opposite. But, verse 8, he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him and which stood before him. And what did the young men advise them? And he said unto them, What counsel give ye that we may answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, Make the yoke which thy father did put upon us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shalt thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, Thy father made our yoke heavy, but thou make it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And now, whereas my father did lade you with heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father has chastised with you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So Jehoram and all the people came to Rehoboam, and the third day, as the king had appointed, saying, Come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people roughly. So he did the opposite of what the wise old counsel of his father said. He didn't speak nicely and calmly and, with grace. He spoke roughly. And, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about how kings and rulers speak. A king, because typically kings don't have, much counsel against them, and a lot of them, don't face, the punishment to be removed unless, you kill them. A lot of them, they can speak quite roughly because they're the king. Servants, they speak meekly because they got to. I don't want to lose my job. So pretty much he spoke, and this is by God's doing, to split the kingdom. He spoke roughly. I'm going to listen to the guys that I grew up with. They came up with me. I trust them. I don't trust these men that were in my father's counsel. Even though my father's counsel built the greatest kingdom that has been ever known to mankind to this day, the richest kingdom. Nations came to my father. I want my guys. I want my crew. I want to put my people in place. So instead of listening to the wise counsel, and this is why wise counsel is important, you see that in Proverbs, from the very words of his father Solomon, wise counsel can save you from trouble. You listen to young, foolish people. I'm not saying all young people are foolish, but because, a lot of older people, especially in this generation, can be foolish because they were raised in foolishness. Guess what? Because he did not listen to the wise counsel of his father, he lost the kingdom. All right? So he answered the people roughly, forsook the old man counsel of his father. In verse number 13, and the king answered the people roughly and forsook the old man's counsel that they gave him, and he spake to them after the counsel of the young man, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. You think my father was bad? Watch what I do. It's going to be worse. You're going to have to do more work. You're going to have to build more for me, same pay, maybe even less. How dare you talk to me, the king, the son of the great King Solomon, and ask me to be lighter? Don't you see the pride in his speech? I'm a noble. Y'all are down there and y'all asking to be lighter. Watch what I do. That's kind of a mentality you see with a lot of nobles throughout history. They typically view themselves as higher than their servants. But let's be honest. Solomon was wise, and his counsel was wise. And we all know a king without his servants, without his workers, is nothing. Because who's going to build the temple? Is the king going to build the temple with his own hands and feet? Is he going to put the time in? Same thing at your job. If you weren't working that job and there were no workers coming there, who's going to hold the business up? No, you need servants. You need employees. You need people to hold that business up in order for you to sit in your chair, for you to make all that money. You need people's help. All those people that say, I did it on my own, that's a lie. You didn't make your millions, your billions on your own. Same thing with artists. I came from the bottom, now I'm here. I ain't have no help. Well, who bought your albums? Who gave you that record deal? Who paid you? It wasn't you. You had help. You had people that liked your product and bought from you. So that was the young ruler's misstep. And you can assume because he was noble and had such richness given to him and didn't have to see work like Solomon, didn't have to flee and see his father, suffer like Solomon did. He didn't have that experience to see the suffering of the king. He took it for granted. So I'm going to listen to my boys. And that's another reason why you shouldn't just take your boys' advice, but you have to be biblical and test all things. What's wise? Don't just do things based off of your boys or loyalty. No, follow God, be loyal to God, but test every man. That was his mistakes. All right. So what do we see? Verse 11. Now, whereas my father did lade you with heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father have chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, and the king had appointed, saying, Come to me again the third day. And the king answered them, the people, roughly, and forsook the old man's counsel they gave him. And he spake, I read it again. Let me go down. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was for the Lord, that he might perform his saying which the Lord spake to Elijah, and the Shilonite unto Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. So when all Israel saw the king hearken not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, What portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse to your tents. O Israel, now see to thy own house, David. So Israel departed into their tents, and just think about it. Put yourself in their shoes. Here is a tribe of people that served Solomon, full-heartedly, and all of Israel sees this young ruler respond harshly to someone that helped build them up. These people build you up. What about us? Are you going to do the same to us? Have you to build, our stuff up? Have us to build your stuff up, and then you come back harshly like that? Oh, no, we don't got no portion in this. This is not how David was. Look at what David did. David, he gave, a house to Jonathan's son. David, he did a whole lot of stuff to help poor people. He loved God. And Solomon as well. He made us rich. We had no concerns or worry. He gave us, a temple full of gold, floors full of silver. But you respond harshly. You're coming too strong. And that's true. A lot of us are the same way. When you see, a ruler, get too prideful and go harsh, on poor people. A lot of us, we remove our support. You see that today, a whole lot. You see someone poor, someone rich, respond harshly. Typically, your common citizen will remove their support. Verse 18. All right. But as for the children of Israel, verse 17, which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. So then all the tribes left, except for Judah. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, so over the sacrifice, and all Israel stoned him with stones, that he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. So never again did Israel combine as one nation during that time. And through the scriptures, they were always, separated. You had Judah, and then you had the other 11 and I think 10 tribes. Levi, remember, Levi wasn't counted amongst the tribes because God took them for an inheritance. What you had were the two half tribes of Joseph. All right, so remember that. All right, verse 20. And it came to pass when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. So as God said, only Judah. And you can say Levi as well, the priest nation, but they weren't counted amongst the tribe. And when Rehoboam was come to Judah, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of Benjamin and 400 score thousand chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. But it didn't work. But the word of God came to Shemaiah, the man of God, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and to all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the remnant of the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Return every man, do not fight to his house. For this thing is from me. I have caused this. God has caused this to be split because of your father's sin, really. They hearkened therefore to the word of the Lord and returned to depart according to the word of the Lord. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in Mount Ephraim and dwelt there, and went out from thence and built Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, Now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. If this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto their Lord, even to Rehoboam the king of Judah, and they shall kill me and go to Rehoboam the king of Judah. Wherefore the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And he set the one in Bethlehem, and the other he in Dan. And this thing became a sin. Why? This is the same thing Aaron did. Calves, idolatry, goat worship. So, guess what? Could he have learned this from his father because he gave places of sacrifice to appease his wife? Yes. All right, so he continued sin. And real quick, you're going to see this common trend throughout the book of Kings. It's going to speed up. We're going to deal with more kings, but a lot of kings, continued in idolatry, and it caused God to be unpleased. And you're going to see a cycle of kings, falling and turning because of idolatry, which is against the commandments of God. All right. So he put, one in Bethlehem and the other in Dan. And, real quick, with the tribe of Dan, it's kind of hinted that Dan's idolatry, as we read, was quite known. And when you look in Revelation in the 144,000 with the chosen man, you don't see the tribe of Dan put in there, but you see Levi put in that place. Quite interesting. It might be something, it might not. All right. Verse 31. And he made a house of high places and made a priest of the lowest of the people, which were not sons of Levi. Okay. Which is forbidden. Because who is supposed to be the priest? The Levites. Who are the high priests? The sons of Aaron. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month, and on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah, and he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethlehem, sacrificing unto the calves that he made. Ooh-wee. And he placed in Bethlehem the priests of the high places which he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he made in Bethlehem on the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he devised of his own heart. And he ordained a feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered upon the altar and burnt incense. All right, we're going to conclude on that note. So, very briefly, God judged Israel based on the sin of Solomon, but you're going to see that Solomon's son is going to be judged later on because of his sin. Did Solomon's son turn to God and follow God full wholeheartedly? Because remember, in the prior chapter, it was a promise that he would have his place and have peace just like his father. He just won't have the other, 11 tribes. No, what he did instead, made two calves, gave one to Dan, gave one in Bethlehem, built high places of sacrifices, which you will see a common trend of this throughout the book of Kings and Second Kings. You only have a few kings throughout the history of kings that tore them down, like Josiah. And I'm trying to remember the other ones that did good in the sight of God. But one thing you see, God does not like idolatry. He doesn't. And you see a common trend when you give place to these heathen cultures, just like Solomon did, and just like the children of Israel did throughout its history, which, you see David didn't do it. Guess what? The people, you follow the people, you're going to end up compromising big time. You see the same thing today in our culture. Because the Bible isn't, correctly taught when it comes to mixing in with, heathen cultures. For example, in the 1960s and 50s, you see a big boom through this glorified period of time of civil rights, and and you see what our common core belief is to be inclusive to everything, even within Christian circles where doctrine means nothing, but everything's about unity and including everything, not about evangelism. I'm not saying we don't talk to people, but there is no difference in today's culture. We are tolerant and we don't even discern. We never get to the, true factor, but we give ground to heathen principles. So you wonder why in your school system and your children that you send out to the education fields and all that stuff, how they come out supposedly to serve God, they come out with secular heathen beliefs that destroys a nation. Principles are similar. We're not under the law, but when you mix and you don't declare things that are holy from unholy, and you have this neutral, ground for everything with truth, and you can't talk about it, it's going to corrupt everything. It's going to corrupt your children. Just like with Solomon, his children got corrupted by it because he married strange women. Just like Israel, they were corrupted by the king's influence because the king's word means a lot. Solomon gave ground to this sin, by building, places of sacrifice for his wives. So do you think that his son thought it was bad? Probably not. My dad did it, I should do it. But mama said, well, what does God's word say? Well, just like my father, I'm going to take it a step further. And that's one thing you see, especially when we speak, and it's important to talk about, when we speak about, I don't believe in generational curses anymore, but when you speak about, why is the younger generation worse? It's not worse because they just got bad on their own. It's worse because the principles that your forefathers put into you, did you put it in your child? You didn't. That's one thing, I always, when I talk to a lot of elders, like elderly people that, complain about younger people. And then I look at their lives and I see, I'm not talking about all of them. I'm talking about this generation. I look at their lives. I look at the music. I look at the things they put in. But, at the same token, they serve God. And I look at their forefathers and how more on fire and more how diligent they were with God. They weren't as partial as the latter generation. I mean, the current generation. My question is, your example is not as godly as your father's and your mother's example. You didn't. Your example of your lifestyle was very hypocritical. And do you expect for your child to come out like and serve God like that? No, they're not. It's going to be worse unless God intervenes and saves them. It's always worse. You see it time and time again. It always gets worse in the following generation unless God intervenes. That's the problem with this. Stop blaming children fully for things getting worse. Did you make a strong stand of God like your fathers did? No, it's different. You speak high of them, but when the culture came around and said to be tolerant to all things and allow all things to happen, and you instilled that into your child, but you still went to church, what is your children going to do? Well, mom did this, so I'm going to cast all that aside because mom was doing this on Sunday, but on the weekend she was doing this. Or, for example, this woman that I'm talking to in my, online. She complains about, her children acting defiant, but she speaks highly of her grandmom and granddad that, were, in the fields working. But what's your lifestyle? You just come to church, you do your own thing, no one can tell you what to do, and then you expect your children to fear God. No, they see your hypocrisy, and guess what? They're going to do worse. Why should I do what mom says when she do this? Or why is my daughter sleeping with this man and that man? Why should I, obey mom when she got a boyfriend living in her house shacking up? You expect your child to pick better than you? No, you had God instill in you. You might do a little bit better, but what God is instilled in your child? A hypocritical one. All right, we're gonna close on that note. Any comments before we continue on?
I guess just a small one. You already pretty much touched on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, I think it's just that people don't really look at God as the ultimate truth. they look at reality too much through a neutral lens that, everybody has their own spiritual journey, and they go through, and everybody has their own different interpretations and such like that, rather than looking at Christianity and the Bible and such as the one and only truth, and the standard by which you have to judge everything.
Yeah. Anybody else? Brother Sombra, you there, bro?
Yeah,
Oh,
but you're good. You're good.
okay. Yeah. But one thing I do again, one thing I do want to say is kind of me repeating myself.
Yeah.
Don't expect the next generation to do better or your children to do better than you if you don't instill, the fear of God in their lives. It don't work typically. Unless God steps in. Yes, God can save your children, but if you halfway serve God, you're being hypocritical in your service to God.
Mm,
9 times out of 10, your child is going to look at it. Remember the principle in Matthew 7.
mm,
The principle in Matthew 7, it tells you how judgment works. Your children will do it to you. They're going to measure
mhm,
your lifestyle. They're going to measure, your example, and they're not going to follow you because your testimony loses its, validity to them because of your hypocrisy. Judge not that ye be not judged, for with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye might, it shall be measured to you again. So, to put it simple, as a parent or as an evangelist or whatever you do, if you give a judgment, what's going to happen to you? The person you're giving judgment to, or you're giving them commands, or you're tell them not to do something or tell them to do something, they're going to be like, let me look at your lifestyle.
mhm.
Let me look how you operate. Why should I follow this half example, this hypocritical example, when you do it? No, I'm going to go fully and do what I want to do. So,
Mm.
again, don't expect your children or the generation following you to be as godly as your parents or as you if you're not instilling God in them and you're, not living that life. It always gets worse. Anybody else? All right.
Ni- Nicely said, Lee.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
I had something to say.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Zach.
Sorry, I was trying to get my microphone to work. And, it's always when I gotta say something, it never works. But um, I really have to say this was a very good Bible study. It taught a lot of things that maybe we could use to apply to our life today. Um, I think about that whole thing is like Luke said earlier. He no longer believes in generational curses. I don't believe in that either. But I do think that what we do, even if you are a parent, influences our children. Because I don't really follow worldly sayings, but the whole thing can be said. What you know your child is around, they become that. Like it says in the Bible, bad company corrupts good morals. So, depending on what you do as a parent, can influence your child and your child's child in the future. You have to be very careful, and you can't just say, "Well, I'm, a follower of God, but I go out clubbing every Saturday." Well, I'm a follower of
Ooh.
God, but I drink till I'm drunk
Ooh.
and I pass out. Well, I'm a follower of God, even though, I hit everybody and I hate and I hold hatred in my heart. You just you just have to be careful, and like Christ said, don't cast another brother's plank out of their eye when you have one in yours. You have to be very, very careful. And we can't just be hearers of the word, we have to be doers of the word. That's something I have to tell myself every day because we're supposed to deny ourselves. But what you change into is what your children are going to reflect. Because this whole notion of, oh, well, our children is going to become a reflection of us, that is true. But it's also because we, as parents, have a responsibility to guard our children, to fear God. That's pretty much it.
As I close, just as we go through this book, you're gonna see this thing like pretty much repeat itself. Most of the kings, that you see in the Book of Kings, which represents God's relationship with Israel, they're a whore, harlot. God delivers them constantly, and they continue to turn to idols. But just think about this. Solomon did not full-heartedly serve God, and he gave place for idols. So what did his son do? His son did far worse than the father, and built two golden calves, and actually made a festival in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, and in the tribe of Dan to do sacrifices towards that. And not only that, instead of having the Levites to, be priests, he made, other men priests. If we can assume this, if, when we look at Solomon and David, what example did David give Solomon? Full-heartedly served God, and when he messed up, he got back up and turned to God. Every time he, sought counsel, who did David go to? He went to the priest, he went to wise counsel, and he obeyed. What did his son do? His son, he talked to the young men of his peers. He, did not wholeheartedly serve God, because what example did Solomon give? He did good, but he was worse because Solomon wanted to appease his wife instead of appeasing the people. What did David do when his wife mocked him for worshiping God? He pretty much didn't deal with Michal no more. His wife. Like pretty much, I'm going to praise God even more. I don't care, if you think I look like stupid and foolish, I'm going to praise God still. Solomon, can we have a place of sacrifice to appease our gods? Oh, my handsome, lovely king. All right, baby.
Yes.
All right, baby. I'm going to do it just for you, baby. I'm going to serve God, but on the hush-hush side, I'm going to do that.
Ooh.
Pretty much. I wish I could have sounded better than that. But, you got to make a stand for God. All right. James, close us out. The CGU is brought to you by... my bad.
The Bible.
The Bible.
Real talk.
I thought that was Trust that was saying it.
That was
And
me.
you gotta create some you gotta create some room for your love. For your love.
Uh-huh.
Real talk.
The CGU. All of the biblical except Latin part by.
Good word.
Bible.
All right.
Make sure to donate to the CGU
All
people.
right. I'm needing you.
All right.